It's a joy for me to be with you here to answer some of your questions. We've received questions from YouTube, texts, and emails. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about the first question, which is your take on coronavirus in light of end time prophecy. Well, as you know, in Luke 21, verse 11, it talks about, Jesus is talking about what's going to happen at the end of the age. And he mentions this. He says, there will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilence in various places, and fearful events, and great signs from heaven. Pestilence, of course, plagues. Now, the only problem with determining whether the end of time is coming as a result of pestilence is we've had pestilence throughout history. You know, there was a great plague in Constantinople under Justinian, where 1/3 to 1/2 of Europe's population died. That was in 541 AD, and you're dealing with, of course, in 1347 to 1352 AD, the Great Black Plague that went on for about 4 years, and you're talking almost 200 million people died. So we're dealing with huge pestilence. But what was very fascinating to me is when the time clock on God's calendar moved forward at the turn of the century. When we moved from the 1800s to the 1900s, there were a number of things that happened simultaneously. First off, the most important thing is not what the enemy is doing on the planet, but what God's doing. And you'll notice as we move from 1899 to 1900 to 1901, that period, there was an outpouring of the Holy Spirit worldwide. Joel prophesies, in the last days, I'll pour out my spirit on all flesh. That prophecy began to happen simultaneously all over the world, in India and Chile, in the United States, and on and on and on. That was a very clear understanding that God was about to do something in human history that had not been done before. Secondly, right after that outpouring, you had two major events that really fulfilled this particular prophecy. For example, in 1914, you had World War I, and it ended in 1918. 16 million people died in World War I. And then, right after that, you had the Spanish flu in 1918. Now, to give you an aspect of how that happened, you had over 500 million people that were affected by this, and 500 million people, or at least it says 1/3 of the world's population were affected. In the United States, many thousands of people died. It's estimated that overall over 50 million people died worldwide. We're talking a pandemic of incredible proportions, all starting at this point. Now, because of these kinds of things, people began to think, well, the Lord's coming right now. And you have a number of religious groups that began to put dates. The Lord's going to come, and it's going to be on this date. And of course, as we all know, that didn't happen. And many of those groups are still around trying to theologically figure out how they were so wrong. So we have to be real careful. But I believe that some of the other things that we're looking at is not only those signs, but the realization that in 1948, Israel became a nation. And in 1967, Jerusalem, that was a divided city, became a united city. Now, that may not impress you or impact you at all. But as a boy, growing up in my home, I remember Dad saying, look, you better be ready for the rapture, because when the city of Jerusalem becomes united, you know, that's a clear sign of the coming of the Lord. Well, it happened in 1967. We're still here. But I'm telling you, those kinds of prophecies are taking place. This particular pandemic is one of many. I mean, realize we've had pandemics already, and some of them you're not even aware of. In 1957 through 1958, there was a pandemic worldwide that killed literally 2 million people worldwide, and 70,000 people died in the U.S. In 1968 and 69, 1 million were killed, 34,000 Americans died. These are pandemics you haven't even heard about, but they've happened. And of course, we're all very much aware of the swine flu pandemic that killed 12,000 people in America alone, which was in 2009 and 2010. So these things are happening. This is just one of many things that are happening. I believe the Lord is coming. I believe it's from the general things God's doing in the world today. I'm still looking for the great revival, a great move of the Spirit of God to give planet Earth one final time to get right. I've noticed this in history. Before destruction comes, there's always been the mercy of God that brings in a mighty, mighty revival. So I'm looking for that. I'm believing for that. And this could be the time when that happens. Well, I hope that helps give you a little light on the subject. Be careful to set dates. I'll never forget that a little pamphlet was mailed out. 88 reasons why Jesus is returning in 1988. Well, he never came. I was excited that some of my parishioners were real excited that the Lord was coming, so they started doing something for Jesus. The only thing I felt bad about is that when he didn't come, they stopped doing something for Jesus. We all should be doing something for Jesus. His coming is nigh, and it could take place at any time if you believe in a pre-trib rapture. And so I just say, praise Jesus for what God is doing in our world. And these are signs, these pandemics are signs of an unstable world that is desperately in need of God.
Thank you so much for joining us for Ask the Pastor. If you have any questions that you would like Dr. Morocco to answer, please leave them in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe and click that bell icon so you get notified every time we have a new video. God bless you.